The big pivotal moment was when I realized the difference between Bitcoin and crypto. If you are putting yourself on a map saying, I'm the Bitcoin business, you're taking a risk that you're going to get a knock on the door from the cartel saying, hey, it's not easy to just spend Bitcoin. You need someone to accept it, right? And all over the world, there's just not that many places that accept it.
Hello.
Greetings again.
So, yeah, Kyle, we've got the one and only Kyle from We Are Satoshi. Isn't that
Thanks for
wonderful?
having me. Appreciate you guys. Thanks for making time to chat.
Excellent.
Absolutely. And as I mentioned just in our preamble, it was great to meet you when you came over to Bulgaria, Sofia, the capital city, last year for the conference then. And we've been following your Geyser fundraising. But I'd love to just kick off with a question that I've just thought of is what gave you the motivation to want to do this trip to Bulgaria coming towards the end of June?
Definitely. The story could start, when I'm 15 years old, because we're all on a path to find Bitcoin at some point. And then once you find Bitcoin, then for me, at least, the question was, what now? How do I allocate my time and energy now that I have this tool? So for me, I was into filmmaking for right after college for a couple years, and I had the sense that I'm going to be trading time for money forever, and I'll never be able to accumulate wealth, and how am I ever going to have a house and all these types of things. So I put it on the sideline, and I said, okay, let me get into business and entrepreneurship. Fast forward a few years, I find Bitcoin, and I start to realize that actually, no, you can just add value to the marketplace and store that value in Bitcoin. And so it's opened up this door to come back to creativity, to start making things again. And that led me to start traveling the world to these Bitcoin conferences. The first real Bitcoin conference I ever went to was Plowman's conference in Sofia. So I think that's probably a pretty unique experience for Bitcoiners starting in Bulgaria. But it's just been getting involved in the community. It's just been awesome. Very warm welcome, especially from you guys in Bulgaria. Ivan and I recorded my third podcast. He was a guest. We recorded in Prague, and we just had a great connection. I think even though we're on opposite sides of the world, we share so many values. And so when he reached out to me a couple months ago and said, hey, we're not doing a conference this summer, but we want to do something that brings all of Bulgaria's, the word I use is disparate, but just actions and initiatives that are somewhat working in tandem. How do we bring those things together and tell the entire journey of Bulgaria's early Bitcoin adoption? So I am, as a storyteller, could not be more fired up about telling a story, A, that's never been told, and B, that I think has tremendous impact. We can talk specifically about it, but I think right now we're at a pivotal point in Bitcoin's trajectory where it is not guaranteed. The bright orange future is absolutely not guaranteed. Human action, individuals like you guys actually going and building things, bringing people together, that's going to be how we actually see Bitcoin become the freedom technology that it can. I just wrote this down before we started recording. I just have to share this quick story because I was trying to hire an editor in Pakistan yesterday. And I said, hey, how do we pay you? $50 for an edit. For them, $50 is pretty good money. And they said, oh, we cannot accept Bitcoin because it's so basically like tamped down by the government. The government is so anti-crypto, anti-Bitcoin that even if we wanted to use Bitcoin, they would have no easy way to off-ramp on the other side. So she said, hey, we got to use Wise. And I said, okay, they're going to take 8%. She's like, yeah, it's normal. So I say that because using Bitcoin is not guaranteed. Yes, Bitcoin is, you don't need a third party. You can transact with anyone around the world. But actually, if the government in that other side where that person is their jurisdiction, they can just stop it altogether. So I do believe that grassroots, getting more people on the lifeboat, is the way around that. The more Bitcoiners that we have, the more people speaking up for the importance of the freedom side of things. So long answer. Hopefully that gives you some insight into where I'm coming from. This is a revolutionary time, and I'm just grateful to be part of the team. It's kind of where I'm at.
That's fantastic. I mean, the cross-border payment solution that Bitcoin provides is something that obviously we all know about, but it's so interesting to hear where it works. And in your particular case, perhaps struggling a little bit to make it work. We've used it ourselves, actually, to pay someone abroad, and it worked great. It was the only solution, in fact.
And I have those stories too, right? I just chose the one yesterday that was just kind of a wake-up call, like, oh man, this technology exists, but that doesn't mean that it actually can be utilized.
Absolutely. And of course, you mentioned the grassroots side. We hear a lot these days about the institutions, the corporate buying, the strategies of the world, and Bitcoin reserves. But really, it's peer-to-peer payments that excite NASCO and myself. I'm sorry, I'm speaking for NASCO as well, but we wouldn't be doing what we're doing if we didn't feel that actually it's a consumer tech thing, Bitcoin. Ultimately, it's all about the consumer, the average person, everybody, or anyone, I should say, being able to use it. So I'm really excited that part excites you, because in our journey, we've been around a little bit of time in Bitcoin. Of course, we get used to people just looking at the number side and getting excited about the price. There's me looking at my block clock, actually. So, slightly hypocritical there of me, but you know what I'm saying. It's once you're into it, you want to try and contribute in some way. I think that's what I'm hearing from you.
For those watching, I'm sure there will be millions of people watching. Probably not 100, because if they're 100, I know 50 of them. But hopefully we'll get up to 500, let's say. We'll have the link, because this is one of the reasons to call Kyle, because he's working on that project, a movie about the Bitcoin environment here in Bulgaria. So let me just kick off with one question as well. Talking as Lance took the topic, talking about just watching the price holding forever, a price going forever, whatever. When was the first moment you figured it out that you can actually pay stuff and you don't care you're actually losing sats at that point of time? And what triggered this journey out
Fantastic.
of the hodler domain?
Yep. We all go down, I say Bitcoin adoption. It just happens in milestones or layers. The kind of the general graphic that I think about is you got to get off zero. So you got to stack, you got to get some skin in the game, because you're not going to start learning about it unless you have $100 or $200, whatever it is, that just gets you interested. So you stack, you learn, and then you hodl, right? So that's the process. But that's just on the store of value side. So at a certain point along the journey, you actually realize that money, it's actually, Bitcoin and dollars are obviously fungible in and of themselves. And therefore, if you're spending dollars, that's in theory less Bitcoin that you could buy. And if you're spending Bitcoin, you're spending less dollars on that same purchase. You could buy more Bitcoin, you could replace that Bitcoin. So ultimately, at the end of the day, you come to this realization that spending is spending, and Bitcoin incentivizes you to take a lower time preference, and actually to say, do I want to buy this thing today that, yes, it's $5, but I know Bitcoin's going to $5 million. So this is going to be a $250 coffee in 10 years. Is it worth it? So that's kind of the journey for me. The big pivotal moment was when I realized the difference between Bitcoin and crypto. I was, I wouldn't say like gambling, but I was just speculating, crypto casino, buying all types of coins. I had no idea what the difference between them was. And I was listening to Guy Swan's podcast right after watching my crypto savings or crypto investments, whatever you want to call it, go down by 75% in 2022, I believe. So I was sitting there watching the number go down, trying to educate myself around what the heck am I owning. And Guy Swan said, Bitcoin is the only decentralized cryptocurrency. And my mind just went like, what? That's true? If that's a true claim, which I'm going to go verify, then I need to sell all of these other cryptos and go 100% Bitcoin. So that I literally did that day. I just pivoted, boom, orange pilled. But then still there's a ways to go before you get to almost the unit of account mindset, where you're actually denominating your wealth in terms of Bitcoin. And I think at that point, that's when you realize the spending Bitcoin, saving Bitcoin, it's kind of semantics, right? Like they say, never sell your Bitcoin. But what does that actually mean, right? To go back to what I was saying about what are you going to spend your dollars, and that's buying less Bitcoin. So anyways, the transition that I think not everyone gets to, but that has been the biggest unlock, is that unit of account denominating your life in terms of Bitcoin. And the reason why is because if you're trying to plan for the future, have a house, a family, retirement, how are you going to do that if you don't know if the amount of savings that you have is going to cover what you need to live? So you have a measuring stick that's changing over time. So that's the dollar, right? Whereas Bitcoin, I can say in 20 years from now, I don't know what the price of Bitcoin will be, but it will be higher. And so I have more certainty to build my life around that. So all over the place answer, but it's a great question. And I just encourage people to keep an open mind, because it is a big step to even go from a hodler to somebody who's spending Bitcoin, engaging in the community. Last thing I'll say, it's not easy to just spend Bitcoin. You need someone to accept it, right? And all over the world, there's just not that many places that accept Bitcoin. Here in Seattle, we've got a company that's coming out with Bitcoin-backed loans, and there's not one merchant in town that I can go buy dinner with Bitcoin. So that tells you about the United States, right? Where people are building businesses specifically for the financial markets and investment side of things, largely neglecting the grassroots stuff that is more prominent in places like El Salvador, Costa Rica, and now Bulgaria. So that's all I've got on that. I just think that Bitcoin, if it's not going to be a medium of exchange, then it just becomes this digital gold commodity controlled by all the governments, and all the people are still in the same situation they're in today.
Oh.
Nice. And of course, by doing the filming, you're recording where we're up to, and some of the people behind creating, as you mentioned, not everywhere accepts Bitcoin yet, but there are places, of course, here in Bulgaria, there are places, but this grassroots thing, you're particularly interested in that side, aren't you, to see it as a grassroots medium of exchange movement?
For sure. And our MO, our goal on this whole thing is to inspire people that are on the fence about actually becoming a builder. In Bulgarian, the translation to builder is weird, apparently, so we couldn't put the word builder in the film, in the title of the film. But it's those people that actually are going to go build something, start a walk, start the Bitcoin Club. You guys have fantastic education and meetups. And there was even a young children, they did a book reading with the Bitcoin book, teaching kids about Bitcoin at an early age. I'm definitely the grassroots side of things. It's kind of like a catch-all word, but I just think that is going to lead to the more sustainable growth than the top-down, hey, daddy government, will you buy some of my strategic Bitcoin reserve and pump my bags? And I also just think that narrative, when you see people building things, grassroots, like that is perceived differently in society than when the crypto people are lobbying the government to get a bunch of free handouts. So that's where I think just the builder mentality, getting people, like if you can get one builder to go from on the fence to building something, that's potentially 100 hodlers or 1,000. Like you don't know the impact. I think that's, to your point, Lance, like it's the people that really move the needle. And so, yeah, I'm excited to learn, definitely, and I want to take home some motivation. I have a feeling I'm going to come to Bulgaria, and I'm going to come home and just be like, well, I obviously need to do more here, so that's the goal.
Well, yeah, I guess some of the top-down, I wasn't going to say, kind of regulation does have an impact, and I understand the challenges for US people in the US and Canada probably as well. But I love the expression, let the sats flow, because the value of a network, it's the old law, remind me, I can't remember the name, you have this gearing effect like a Facebook platform or any of the X or things like that. The more people are in it, it's worth square of the number of people. So the network actually has to be used. And, of course, grassroots is people actually sending sats to each other. And that creates real value. And I think this is the bit that people... You mentioned you're the second person Nasco and I have spoken to in the last week who started off with altcoins. And
most of us
I
do.
think that's very interesting, is that you just... When people are interested in the casino, the gambling and stuff, then I don't know whether it helps or not, but when people think about existing networks that have real value, then you kind of realise there's only going to be one network that people are actually going to bother using, and that's obviously Bitcoin, and with the layer 2s, Lightning, Liquid on top of that. So I think that that piece is incredibly valuable, and I think the people who are hodling, as Nasco said, that the journey that people make, scared to spend any sats, they need to get to this next level of thinking that the network needs us all to use those sats to give it greater value, and of course to help orange pill people. We love getting merchants on board, and they receive their first sats, and as you say, skin in the game. I love that expression. Means that, of course, that they're starting their journey, which, of course, some people are pretty quick. Sounds like you were pretty quick to move on from the alt space, altcoins. But some people, they can be quite slow to make that progression. So that's really cool. And in your documentary, I have a question. There is, I guess you can't say too much because you don't know exactly how it's going to go. Is there anything specific that you're after, that you're thinking about? I mean, you mentioned you're telling a story. You obviously, stories make films interesting, but is there a story you have in your mind, or are you open to just see the story unfold?
Yeah, definitely. So this is a conversation that has been happening since the beginning, since we first set out on this. It's like, okay, let's make a film. We've got all these different, like I said, projects, and how do we bring them together? So I'm going to be in the film. That's it's my journey to Bulgaria and me learning. So you'll see the behind the scenes process, largely inspired by one of my favorite documentary films, which is called Icarus. If you've ever heard of it or seen it, it will blow your freaking mind. The filmmaker basically set out, he wanted to do 2 bike races. One, naturally, with no performance enhancing drugs, and then the second one, it's like an amateur cycling race. He was going to do a bunch of doping and then go back and see how much faster he did the ride. And along the way, he actually gets sort of raveled up or involved in this massive Russian conspiracy to actually influence the Olympics. So he goes and he finds the doctor who was doing the actual performance enhancing drugs with the athletes, and the guy ends up in the United States in protective custody. It's this whole crazy story, but he did not have any idea that it was going to take that turn when he set out to make the film. So to that point, I don't know what twists, what turns will come. I do know that there are some incredible stories behind the people that are doing these projects, and Bitcoin, really the question that I'm trying to figure out is like how Bitcoin is changing people's lives. Like, what impacts is Bitcoin having? Is it giving people the thought that they could have a family, a bigger family, a different future? Like these are the things that if I can capture on film and not just tell, but show, that's where I think that like we're going to be able to really show people the power of Bitcoin. And so, yeah, like with someone like Ivan, his story specifically, we'll save it for the film, because in my 3rd episode, he tells it too. But, he's been able to turn his life around, and now he's starting a family. And I know there's other people that are doing similar things. So, that's pretty much where we're coming from. The hero's journey is some staples of filmmaking, right? You need some tension, you need some challenge. I told the guys on a call the other day, I said, look, if I come to Bulgaria and I end up in jail or something like that, like, I'm not going to wish for that, but it would make a good film. So, who knows what challenges arise? I will be leaning into those for sure. And I'm also, in these initial conversations, I'm speaking with every single person, that we're going to have in the film. And I'm asking them, how intimate can we get? Can I come have dinner at your house? Can I meet people in your life? Can we get in a car and follow a delivery driver for Ordermoon? Like, these are the things that I think can show versus tell, and hopefully inspire other people around the world to do the same.
That's awesome. Absolutely incredible, Kyle. So looking forward to obviously joining you in conversations over here and showing you what we're up to, but most of all, seeing the end result after I'm sure, a huge editing effort. And,
oh yeah. It's going to be monumental.
Yeah, monumental. Actually, that's the thing. Can you tell me how much video one takes to how many hours? What's the ratio of the content you film to actually the length of the final product?
It can vary so much. You know, there's films out there. There was one they did octopus. This guy swam with the octopus, octopi, for like 365 straight days, every single day, and he became friends with the octopus. Like, there's levels to filmmaking. We have constraints, of course. I'm coming just for 1 month. I'm going to film every single day as much as I can. We're going to be going crazy for that month, but there's limitations. So what is that? 24 times 7 times 4. That's the amount total that I could be filming. I'll probably film like 5 hours a day for 3-4 weeks. So we're going to have, I don't know, 50 plus hours of footage, which takes time to go through. And then I'll be doing interviews. So as you guys know, I have a podcast, We Are Satoshi. And the question is, what gifts are you bringing to the world? The same thing we've been talking about is like, okay, you figure out Bitcoin, now what? So the film and my podcast are just super aligned, right? It's the same ultimate goal at the end of the day. So I'm not really sure why I'm talking about that. You asked me something completely different.
It's all good stuff, Kyle. Awesome.
Yeah. I appreciate you, Lance.
You answered the question, and we're super excited. I guess we better start wrapping up because we've been going for a little while. But Nazca, do you have any more questions for Kyle?
Yeah, I was because Kyle has been to El Salvador. This is where you made a movie there as well. Yeah, and talking about circular economies, what was your impression there? Because they don't not bothered with all these regulations. They don't care when they spend money. So because everyone who supposedly watching the podcast and thinking how they create their small circular economy, they're being challenged with all the objections for the merchants, accounting stuff. The other day I spoke to someone who had zero problems with the accounting. I didn't know that guy. I met him, and this is where we start talking about accepting. And his objection was, and his fear was, when I start accepting Bitcoin, how would quickly turn that back into fiat, because I do all the expenses. I need some cash to pay the suppliers. And I said, no worry about that. I know what the statistics are. Yes, the local economy is still very small, and I think the biggest turnover was around 2,500 euro. It was back in April, just a month ago, just previous month. And so you have zero fear, even if you end up having 300 euro dollars a month. That's not gonna change. That's not gonna create any problems for you. Just keep the sats, just stay there. But the question is, and this is, I guess, is another level. So the first level is making people pay. The second level, these merchants get some sats into their accounts, and then they start spending as well. So that won't come within even first few months, as far as I see over here. But what did you see in El Salvador going to that second step? Did you see something? Did you ask people how they're doing there, what they're purchasing among each other?
Yes, and it's a great question. You can't really know what's happening unless you go see it for yourself. Many people in the U.S. we're close to El Salvador. It's a short flight away for us here. And we have this sense, I think, through the internet that El Salvador made Bitcoin legal tender. It's everyone accepts Bitcoin. And obviously that's not the case. When you go there, you go to El Salvador and it varies from place to place. In San Salvador, the capital, you can just walk into a random restaurant and there's a chance that they accept Bitcoin, even if they're not on the BTC map. And so that's a level of adoption that obviously we don't see here. But I went to Costa Rica in March this year, and I was actually more impressed with the level of grassroots adoption there, largely because of just the education around how well the merchants and the local businesses understand Bitcoin. Both in El Salvador and Costa Rica, I experienced times where I maybe didn't have the best Wi-Fi. I also like to save my sats, so I wasn't paying for an internet plan, so I had to go on a Wi-Fi hotspot in order to use Lightning. And so I said, let me just pay with some cash, some dollars or colones. And in both of those countries, I had merchants tell me that they would prefer Bitcoin. That was not the case the first time I went to El Salvador. So between last year and this year, I saw, just anecdotally, definitely a progression in El Salvador, and then I went to Costa Rica for the first time, and there's 400 merchants in a 1 hour drive radius of Bitcoin jungle that accept Bitcoin. Almost every coffee shop, restaurant. It is mind blowing. And I almost attribute, I attribute the difference in adoption to two things. One, education, but two, just the financial system. In El Salvador, they have the dollar system because the Salvadorian peso hyperinflated many years ago, and they said, let's just use the dollar. So they have access to the US dollar, so they have less incentive or less pain, less need to use something like Bitcoin, whereas in Costa Rica, they have a local fiat currency and it debases even more than the dollar. So if they had the dollar there, maybe they'd be less incentivized to use Bitcoin. But I think there's just nuance with these things. It's not going to be, oh my gosh, let's go to El Salvador and just live on Bitcoin the whole time. There are people that live on Bitcoin there for sure, but they've cultivated that over time. So I think starting with the people around you is the way to go. I mean, even before merchants, like getting your roommates to send you, just reimbursement payments instead of use Venmo, use Bitcoin in the family, things like that. So I've heard of families that incentivize their kids with Bitcoin. All the kids want to stack more sats. I just love that concept. So yeah, I think merchant adoption is definitely on the cutting edge. The last thing I'll say on that is I went to Guadalajara, Mexico in the middle of that trip. And my girlfriend's from there, and she had her first Lightning transaction, which I filmed. And the owner of the business is a pizza place, and he said, I don't want to be on BTC Map. Here's another point of friction that is something that merchants, maybe you guys can speak on this, but in Mexico, if you are putting yourself on a map saying, I'm the Bitcoin business, you're taking a risk that you're going to get a knock on the door from the cartel saying, hey, you listed yourself as a Bitcoin business. Why don't you give us the Bitcoin now? And this guy said, look, I only have $2,000 of Bitcoin. Like, they don't know that. The cartel, as far as they're concerned, I might have $1 million of Bitcoin. And this guy's a gringo too. So he's a gringo living in Mexico, and he's aware that he does not want to be it's OPSEC, right? Operational security or whatever it's called. So just as a Bitcoiner, that's like, oh shoot, like this guy's willing to accept Bitcoin, but doesn't want to be on the map. That's an interesting dynamic. So there's just a lot of friction. I think we're still so early days that I don't worry about it that much. Jeff Booth says it's inevitable that Bitcoin becomes a medium of exchange. So I'll just take that at face value. I'm not going to stop taking action towards that end, but I will remain optimistic that even though we have lots of friction around merchant adoption, medium of exchange, it's gonna work out in the end.
Yeah, great story. And I particularly recommend people do what you said there, is incentivize your children using sats.
Do you do that?
Yes, I do. And the other thing that I would love to get involved more is the education of the children in the schools. And I think you've got to start them young. And they pick it up very quickly, of course, using Lightning. And the children will teach the teachers, So I think that's the... I mean, if you think about it, if you have an 8, 9, 10, 12-year-old, within 5, 6 years, they're out in the wide world, or maybe they're at a university or whatever. Yes. And I think that's going to have a big impact. So I think all of us can maybe take some action there in the schools if we can.
There was a great merchant mini conference here just 2 weeks ago. Ivan was there as well. And I had my girl and 2 more girls, they had a stand. So what they made, because they were selling different things, including cookies and anything else. So they made 60,000 sats. So it was really cool. After this, so when all ended, we went for lunch. And they all did their wallet. So they split it in 3, of course, 20,000 each in front of their parents. So that was like I was telling the kids, this is what you need to do. And the parents, because we were all having lunch, and they were watching this, and they were trying to understand the whole thing. So it was a huge lunch orange pilling, because they already had the 60,000 sats. It was amazing.
That is such a cool story. Yeah. And the fact that they made 60,000 sats in a day, and if you divide all the Bitcoin in the world by the total population of the world, you guys know this, right? It's about 200,000 Satoshis per person. Ignoring the fact that, MicroStrategy has 500,000. Like, the average person will never have 60,000 sats. And these kids went and they set up a stand and they had that much. It's just so mind-blowing. Like, those kids will tell that story to their kids and they will not believe it. They'll say, no, you did not make 60,000 sats selling cookies at a... No, there's no way. I love those stories. And I love being aware that you're living through this just incredibly... incredibly amazing time for change, right?
Yeah.
And to be able to witness it firsthand and to recognize what's happening, it's awesome. And to see the kids as well. Yesterday, I'll just share this real quick. I filmed a high school business competition event. So these kids, it's an extracurricular. So it's not part of school, but they can opt into it. And I've also in the past year interviewed executives of some of the biggest companies in the United States. And I was legitimately more impressed with the communication skills of these 16, 17-year-old kids. 16, 17-year-old kids, more eloquent, better communicators than guys making seven figures as CEOs. I'm not kidding. It was so that level, like when I speak with these kids and, on the internet, it's like all the kids these days are all on phones. And it's like, I don't know if that's the case. I think I'm very optimistic about the next generation. And if they're able to grasp Bitcoin, who knows how positive and how bright the future might look.
I bet on that as well. Yeah.
On that high note, inspiring note, Kyle, I think we'll have to wrap up now.
Okay, yeah, I think, it was a great chat. We'll leave all the links there, and we urge everyone to subscribe to We Are Satoshi as well. You've got tremendous, wonderful guests there, so keep it going. Anything else, Lance?
Well, just to watch, subscribe to the Ordermoon channel, and you will see, indeed, merchants at the mini conference we had here, or there, I should say, in Plovdiv, the second city of Bulgaria, and indeed Nasko's daughter enjoying selling cookies and various bits and pieces for sats. So check out that little video.
Yeah. Just to finish the story, it was a very interesting moment. There was some guy approached them during that thing, and they asked someone who didn't want to spend sats and said, "Can I pay you with cash?" And they said no, and that's all you need to know.
Next.
And actually, that's reminded me, we either need to charge more for fiat or discount for
that's great strategy. That's one of the best.
The more I'm thinking about that, obviously many people are doing that now, the more I'm wanting to ingrain it into what we do, actually. So, yeah.
Yeah,
100%.
Thank you very much a lot. All the links there, and that movie is still on Geyser, so everyone that wants to donate, just hit that link. We'll put it, I guess, number one, because every sats counts, and towards a great documentary. So everyone that wants to help will be a great thing too.
And finally, we look forward to seeing you in Bulgaria, Kyle.
Thank you guys so much. I'm so excited to come and spend some time over there. Thank you for making time to ask some awesome questions on the podcast today, guys. Onward and upward from here. Let's go.
Let's go.
Cool. Cheers.